Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game odds on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning. The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, 16 in a row. It's weird to even say out loud 16 in a row. How you doing?
Can't get much better than that, sir. This is a team that can do no wrong right now, and what a huge week we have coming up.
Yeah.
What an unfathomably huge week. And of course, I'm talking about that because of Thursday night's matchup versus the Detroit Pistons. It's going to be absolute. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, a couple of we'll preview the games against the Warriors coming up kind of in the second half of this episode. But briefly,
2 games this week. If
two games
you haven't
this
looked
week.
at the schedule, yeah.
Briefly, I will just say for this part that it's probably like tomorrow night's game. Most people are going to listen to this tomorrow on Tuesday. It's the most I'm looking forward to a Suns game since the finals. It's just massive consequences.
Yeah.
And it feels weird to say that about a regular season game, but I'm really, really excited.
It's the biggest regular season game of the regular season of any two teams so far, period, because it's two teams that are, the Suns are obviously on one of the longest winning streaks that they've ever had. They could tie the longest winning streak in franchise history if they beat the Warriors on Tuesday. And then the Warriors are just killing teams right now, absolutely demolishing teams. I've watched a lot of the Warriors to sort of prepare for this matchup, and they'll get 2 or 3 quarters in, it'll be close, and then just by the end of the game, they'll be up by 20, 25 points. And so these two teams are rolling, and they're going right up against each other, and there's a history there between Steph and Chris Paul, as we know.
Yeah.
So, there's enough there that it's going to be an easy one. And I think this Tuesday game's on TNT, too. Talk about a win as far as scheduling goes. But you joke about the Detroit Pistons being a big game. Recently, we covered some stats from this win streak. We talked about the last time the Suns had a 17-game win streak. What team beat them in that win streak? It was the Brandon Jennings rookie team with the Bucks that beat that team. So you never know who can end a win streak. Maybe it will be the Warriors, but maybe it will be the Detroit Pistons playing out of their mind for one game.
That is absolutely true. Say what you will about all the shitty Suns teams we've covered in the past or just watched in the past. We actually only covered, as part of this podcast, one really bad one. That was the 2018-19 season. But even during that season and other seasons like that, I still remember games where the Suns would just upset a contender randomly in the middle of the season. There were games where they took down the prime dynasty Golden State Warriors. I think there was one game where they took down the fully healthy Warriors with KD, with obviously Draymond Clay, and I think that was the season they had Boogie. And randomly, the Suns won with probably Tyler Ulis as starting point guard, Dragan Bender. Yeah. I don't remember anymore, but the point is those sorts of things happen from time to time. So, yes, you have to take every opponent seriously. And I could see Cade Cunningham going for a Brandon Jennings-esque 50-point game, personally.
Cade Cunningham is the Brandon Jennings of this current era. People have said that, right? Quick announcement. Sam and I have teamed up with a company called Playback to do live analysis on games that we will be broadcasting through their app called Playback. And you can access it by going to our Patreon and signing up for our Patreon. Any tier, $3, $6, or $10 if you sign up. We'll send out a link before the game against the Warriors, and Sam and I will join in the second half, and we'll be able to call the games, essentially. You'll see the same stream as us. We'll be all synced up at the exact same time, and we'll be able to talk over the game and give our live analysis. You can interact with us via chat, a text chat. You could also join us via audio or video and ask us questions live, maybe during commercial breaks, things like that. It'll be our first time for the Warriors game. We're very, very excited about it. If you're interested, go to patreon.com/thetimeline. We'll be doing the Warriors game Tuesday and a couple other games throughout the month of December, and hopefully a couple games every month. Sam, I know you're excited about it too, right?
For sure. It's going to be super exciting. All of the more specific info is on our Patreon, so if you just go to the Patreon, Mike, I'm sure you'll leave a link in the episode description. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest way to find it. I just put out a post with kind of a little mini FAQ. But in general, yeah, I mean, just like for those, I guess, who if you're struggling to envision what it is, it's basically kind of like Twitch, except that we actually have the capacity, the capability to all be together watching a broadcast stream at the same time. And then it's just like Twitch, where Mike and I will be streaming, we'll be talking at various intervals, and there will be a chat function. It should be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of fun. It's obviously an experiment. It's a program that is in beta testing. So that's part of the reason we were approached for this, is because they're still very much figuring out, working out all of the finer details. But I think it's going to be a blast.
And we'll have to learn how to do that too. I mean, we've watched games together.
Right. Yeah.
We've watched games together in the past, luckily, just coincidentally, a few weeks ago. So we have some sort of chemistry there, but really, we had never really done it before until you came to Phoenix. So it's going to be a little bit of an experiment for us as well.
Yeah, and I think I would just warn people quickly, it's not going to be like a K-Ray, EJ type situation. Like, you're going to enter the stream, if you're interested in doing this, of course, signing up at the Patreon to get access to it. You're going to enter the room, and there's still going to be a broadcast stream in the background, which you can choose to mute if you'd like, but you can also keep it on, hear all the crowd noise, hear the normal play-by-play and color commentators announcing the game. So we're not like replacing that role. You're not going to be Kevin Harlan tomorrow, Mike. No, but we're just going to be.
I couldn't if I tried.
Yeah, obviously, and I think that's kind of why I'm saying this, is because we're not professional commentators. It's just about getting in Suns focused analysis, which is something that I think we're in a unique position to do that frankly frequently is lacking on the national broadcast, for example, like we're going to see tomorrow. And obviously the interaction with you guys. All of you will be there in the stream, which means all of you have access to the chat and can ask us questions or give your comments directly, and we can address those. So I think it is kind of a unique opportunity that doesn't really exist in, honestly, the rest of the sports industry right now.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's kind of taking from the Peyton and Eli broadcast for Monday Night Football. It's like an alternate version of the broadcast where you can get very, very specific targeted audiences.
Not to draw a comparison exactly between us and them, but
we're basically exactly like them. Yeah,
yeah, of course.
And it's a really cool app. You can actually adjust the volume between us and the actual game feed, and there's lots of options for you there. Check it out if you're interested, and we're excited. Hopefully you're excited as well. All right, Sam. Today, Devin Booker was just named Player of the Week after the Phoenix Suns knocked off both New York teams, the Knicks and the Nets, and you were able to go to the Brooklyn Nets game. You're once again undefeated at every game you go to this season, which is impressive, but less impressive when you realize they're 17-3. It would be hard to see a loss at this point.
That's fair.
But how was it? Do you have a good time?
Well, in my defense for a second, can I say, like, we all went into that Brooklyn game. It was a back-to-back. They crushed the Knicks the night before, right? That was an awesome game, too. But then they go into Brooklyn, back-to-back. Here's one thing they had going for them, right? They didn't have to travel. I think that makes a difference when you're not, like, hopping on the bus and going from, say, New York City to Philly or Boston or wherever, the night after. They didn't have to travel, went right back to the hotel, came out for morning shoot-around, but then played a kick-ass game against the Nets. Like, I really expected to sweat during that game, in a way that the Suns coming out to a 20-point lead in the first half was just not at all in the realm of possibility for what I was thinking when I took my places. But yeah, it was awesome. Just quickly about the arena. First of all, I feel a little bad because it is kind of a running joke in New York. It's kind of a running joke nationally that the Nets don't have fans. The Nets do have fans. They're not like MSG fans. It's an entirely different experience. But on this particular night, they sold out. It was actually a record set for the most tickets ever at Barclays Center since the
Wow.
Nets moved to Brooklyn in the past, however long they've been there, like 5, 6, 7 years. It was a record attendance to see the Phoenix Suns. And I'm not going to entirely credit the Phoenix Suns with that because it was also just a Saturday night game,
Right.
But, however, I saw a lot of Suns jerseys in attendance. I really did. I saw a robust Suns presence in the city. And I imagine, maybe some of those could be transplants. Some of those could be just out-of-towners. I don't know. But I was impressed with the level of representation. Some of them could be bandwagoners, too, maybe, that we're starting to get. But I was impressed with the level of representation we got in New York from the Phoenix fan base, honestly.
Right. Yeah, I think the Suns are now at a point where if they're coming into a city and you're a Suns fan, maybe you're from Phoenix or you've just been a fan for a while, you're going to try to go to that game. Like, you're not going to miss it. Like previously, in previous years, maybe you skipped it when they came to town. But now they're at the point where, after making the finals, you really want to show some love. And I think that's probably playing into it a little bit. I have yet to see them in another arena this year. That would be a fun thing. I was curious. I was looking at the cheapest tickets, like going to see them in Detroit and stuff like that. I might do that at some point this year. I think that would be kind of fun. But
when are you going to be in Detroit?
I'd have to just go for the game,
That's wild. That's an insane idea. Real quick, can I just rant about, because it's linked to the whole Suns fan presence thing. I went to the NBA store. They just renovated the NBA store in downtown Manhattan near Times Square. And I went to the new store that I think it just opened up within the past few weeks, reopened. It's really impressive in theory. It's got 3 stories. This was my first time, so people know I'm in the state of New York. I grew up right around New York City. I haven't lived there in a while. So this was my first time. I was just going down to visit family for the weekend. That's the background context. It was my first time in Manhattan since basically COVID. And the building is really impressive. It's 3 stories. The Suns display was, unfortunately, Mike, very pathetic. And so if the presence at the Brooklyn game has anything to say about it, I would hope that they can start getting some more Suns jersey sales or they start seeing more demand, because I posted side-by-side pictures on Twitter. There were dozens of jersey options for the Lakers, obviously past and present. Dozens of options, not just LeBron and Westbrook and AD, by the way, but you could get a Carmelo Anthony jersey. You could get all sorts of jerseys if you were a Lakers fan. If you were a Suns fan, I circled around the entire store, all three floors, and I counted, past and present, Mike, the total number of Suns jerseys that I found. I found 5 players represented. Do you want to play a game with me and guess who those 5 players represented were? Because I guarantee at least one is going to take you off guard in the entire NBA store in New York.
I'm guessing they're not all current players.
3 are current and 2 are former.
Okay, I'm going to say Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Those were the 3 current players.
Okay, and I'm going to say Steve Nash.
Correct.
And then lastly, I'm going to say Jason Kidd.
That's a good guess, but it's not Jason Kidd. Do you want me to give you a hint?
Yes.
Jason Kidd's backcourt partner.
Marbury?
Not Marbury, because they were traded for each other.
Oh yes. Geez, I don't even remember who was on that team at the time. Steve Nash was there. Kevin Johnson?
Not Kevin Johnson, although I think they were backcourt partners at one point. It's just the most absurd. Penny Hardaway.
Oh, well, that's a great jersey. Yeah,
was the 5th Suns jersey. It was one of the retro ones. It was like one of the purple ones from like kind of
the purple. Yeah, for some reason that's kind of an iconic jersey.
That interim period of like I want to say between like 98 and 02 or something. Like I don't know. I wasn't I was alive, but I was barely alive. You know what I mean? So I don't know exactly what what year that was anymore. But yes, Penny Hardaway was the 5th jersey available. No Charles Barkley. And it was funny, like, because I was looking around the rest of the store. There really was a pretty good selection of retro jerseys in general. But for a team that had just gone to the finals, I was disappointed.
Well, games like the game against the Nets where they all kind of show out and play really well. And then, of course, if they can do something in this game against the Warriors, especially because there could be some sort of sense of like impending meeting in the playoffs, that's, I think, how they become more of a sort of respected team. Of course, there's been a conversation throughout this win streak about media coverage. Zach Lowe just talked about it on this his last podcast. 16 games in a row is nuts. Like, it's legitimately insane. And, it all leads to this Warriors game. And really, media-wise, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of media watching this game. And it's going to be important for the Suns to play well in that game. And I think as much as the players pretend like the streak doesn't matter, I think they understand exactly what this means.
They care.
And they want to win every single. They care. Yeah, I don't think it's real. And I think you can say that, you can kind of point at, you saw a game in person, the way that Devin Booker has been playing lately, the focus that he's bringing to this game, these games, his efficiency, and even his intensity on defense, I think shows that they really, really, really want to win these games.
I was just going to say, I know they're clowning around, but just look at the videos that, JaVale McGee has been posting on his Instagrams after the games, guys dancing around in the locker room, chanting 14, 15, 16, whatever the number is, but, they know, they care. They're having fun with it. Yeah. And, yeah, Devin Booker, maybe that should be the transition now. That dude's, he's on another level.
Player of the week this week, 30 points a game in the week. Obviously, they went 4-0. 30 points on 21 field goal attempts, which is insane. 53% field goal percentage, 56% from three, 90% from the free throw line in this stretch as well. 3.5 assists. The assists are down, which I think is not a surprise. Throughout Devin Booker's career, when the Suns go on an East Coast road trip, he seems to just take it upon himself to carry those teams to wins, whether it be good teams like this year and last year, or maybe a little bit the year before, or even bad teams. We've seen him. There's the legendary game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
46 points.
Yeah.
Dagger 3 in JJ Redick's head. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. There's a 70-point game against Boston. For whatever reason, he does really, really, really well on these East Coast trips, and now I think they were, of course, rewarded with the wins, and then he got Player of the Week. It's been really fun to watch him.
It's the East Coast media bias revenge tour that's become a yearly tradition if you're a Devin Booker fan, and it's so much fun. And also, Mike, leading three-point shooter on the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker, we can say that now.
Yeah.
Because he is the lone player on this roster shooting about 40% from three-point range.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And it's all been there lately.
Look at us.
It's all there.
Who would have thought?
Pull-ups, catch and shoot, corner threes, it's all been there lately. And everything but the one that we know will never be there, which is the trying to beat the clock 2-for-1 3.
Yeah.
It's still not quite there, but he hasn't even been shooting that lately. He's getting other shots out of that. But yeah, I think a big reason for his success lately is that three-point shot being there, and it doesn't look like it's coming in an unsustainable way. David Nash, our friend, wrote about it recently. More corner threes is a big part of it, and more playing in sort of the Mikal Bridges role in a lot of the plays that the Suns run. That means that he's sort of weak side, and those are the ones that end up being open. So more open threes for Devin Booker. So, even though it might not be 41% or whatever he's at right now for the rest of the season, I think a higher 3-point percentage is something that is probably sustainable for Devin Booker for the rest of the season.
I think he could stay above 40% for the rest of the season, though. I'm dangerously close to just buying in. And I
like it.
And this could be the turning of the corner. And now I could look really dumb if he goes 0 for 18 from deep in the next 2 weeks, but this could be the turning of the page in his career that we've been waiting for, at which kind of everything else opens up. And to that point, Mike, here we are. It's basically December. The Phoenix Suns are 17-3. They're still the second seed in the Western Conference, unfortunately. Devin Booker is averaging 24, 5, and 5. He just won Player of the Month. And he's going to keep racking up individual accolades like that as long as the Suns keep winning. As we know with Player of the Month from previous seasons of watching Devin Booker, it doesn't matter if you average 60 points per game in a week. You're not winning Player of the Week if your team lost that week. That's how the award works. So, and it works the same with the month. If you win games, you win the award. Where are we in the Devin Booker best player in the NBA discussion. Not that he is the best player in the NBA. That's not what I'm saying. But it feels like he's rapidly ascending the rankings because the Suns can't lose. And the question is, how much is the media going to run with that narrative? Is it like before? I feel like going into the season, I feel like it was Devin Booker and Chris Paul are two really good players who are both borderline all-NBA talents. Some people had them ranked in the top 15. Some people had them ranked in the top 20. I don't think anyone really had them outside of there, right? But that was kind of the consensus position. And as long as the Suns keep winning, I mean, Booker could be all-NBA second team.
Yeah.
There are some guys who you would think would be locks for the All-NBA second team in a regular year. Damian Lillard has been kind of ass this season is the first example that I can think of. Like, that opens up a guard spot right there. But to go even further, All-NBA first team? Mm-hmm. Is there any possibility when would we start talking about it?
Who else would it be at this point?
Around the league, you're saying?
Yeah, is it Harden?
Well, it's obviously so. I mean, it's obviously Curry, but you're talking about the
Curry
other
for the point guard. But like, say Devin Booker's the shooting guard, who could be the competition?
I think the competition
Beal.
is DeRozan and Levine are both having and I know they literally are on the same team, so they play different positions. DeRozan, I guess, if you're counting him as a forward, he's having a hell of a season, and the Bulls are a good team.
Yeah,
but like, he's not a marquee name. And same with Levine, honestly. Like, if the Suns keep winning, I don't think Harden's competition. I don't think Lillard's competition with the way he's playing. The Wizards are kind of coming back down to earth now. So, I mean, Beal is there. He's a talent. Donovan Mitchell,
he
hasn't
been great this year either.
Right. Mitchell's obviously competition, but he hasn't been terrific either. I think
the more he shoots, the more they lose.
A lot of these shooting guards are struggling with the adjustment to the new rules. And one of the guys who has been least effective, even though he's only averaging 24 points, which in this era of inflation, be it basketball or otherwise, 24 points per game doesn't necessarily feel like a whole lot anymore. First team All-NBA wise. But on a 60-win team, 25, 5-5, good efficiency, say he's around 60% true shooting when this all levels out. I don't know if he will be. He's under there right now, but let's just say he could be.
It's been going up.
I don't know. It feels like this might be the year.
And I think to add to that, because these votes are not entirely about how the players play. The narrative of coming off of the finals, having a really incredible breakout performance from his first playoffs ever, and then coming into this season absolutely focused when there could be an extreme amount of distractions, I think that the narrative is a bit on his side over Zach LaVine, which I know Bulls fans would hate, but that's just how these. It's how these go. It's how it goes.
I think that's a great point. I think you could build a bipartisan coalition between the stat nerds who are going to like the fact that he makes threes now, and cut down on his turnovers. That's huge too. How about that? 2.8 turnovers per game out of Devin Booker. Never thought I'd see the day.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The stat nerds love that. I am among them. But then you build the coalition with the non-stat
people.
nerds.
Yeah.
What would you call them?
Narrative.
Kindly,
people, right? Yeah.
Where you could build a narrative in there that says he's a hooper, basically.
Right.
There's no better way. Yeah. There's no better way for me to describe it. What you were just talking about, coming off the finals, being motivated, working on his game, all of that.
And they're always a year late for like a lot of these awards. You know?
Right. All the eye test people, but that feeds into the whole hooper mentality. I think you've got the votes. If you need the votes, you've got the votes. I mean, look, we're 20 games. We're 20 games into the season. We're talking about all NBA, which maybe. Granted, I'm jumping the gun. He needs to continue to play this well, but
that's a quarter of the way into the season. And if he keeps this up and he keeps playing at this high of a level, then at some point you're talking about where does he rank in the MVP conversation, truthfully, and then how do you say that player is not in first team All NBA? So. It's all about consistency, just like it is for the rest of the NBA or the rest of the players on the Suns. It's all about consistency. How consistent can he be with this type of production going forward? But the thing is about the Suns that kind of hurts him sometimes is they just don't always need it. Sometimes they're rolling, and Devin Booker can sit a little while in the second half, or somebody else is on fire, and he'll just sit in the corner and not take any shots for a quarter, and he's not the type of player to complain about that. So
that game where I don't even remember which one it was anymore, but sometime during this win streak, Cam Johnson led the team with like 20 points. What
or
game
Frank
was that?
Kaminsky, 31 points.
Frank
Booker
Kaminsky,
stood in the corner for a whole quarter.
Mm-hmm, it happens.
For Frank Kaminsky, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah, so, yeah, it's a pretty amazing stretch for him, and at this point, it's fun to have the conversation about not only, and I think we should talk about this at some point. I'm not really prepared yet, where he ranks as far as in the NBA currently, but like he is rapidly rising the ranks as far as best Suns players of all time, and it'll be interesting to see where the fan base sort of feels he's at. Dude, as far as best Suns players of all time, because there's been some remarkable players.
Another deep playoff run in a row. Like if he gets to back-to-back finals, which is obviously we know that's possible now. No promises, but it's definitely possible. It's like he had 3 straight 30-point games this week, and he's already beaten that record. I feel like not enough people know that, right? Not enough Suns fans even know Devin Booker already has the most 30-point games in a Suns uniform of all time.
A lot.
By a lot. Like he already beat out. Obviously, Steve Nash was never much of a scoring threat. It wasn't that hard to get past him. But Charles Barkley only played with the Suns for 4 years.
Yeah. Amari was one of the top.
Amari was one of the top ones because he played here forever. But Booker's a better scorer than Amari. Honestly, I mean, Amari had his moments. He had the 126 point per game season. I remember that vividly. But he's a better scorer than Amari overall. Walter Davis played with Phoenix forever. I think he may be literally number 2. I don't have the list in front of me. But was never a scorer that Booker is, really. Yeah. I don't think he ever had like a upper 20s type point per game season. And he played in the 80s when the pace was like 5,000 possessions per game too, mind you. Yeah. So, Tom Chambers, great scorer, had a couple great scoring seasons with the Suns, but just not enough longevity. Like Booker in his second contract has already blown that record out of the water. And imagine where he could be after another 3 or 4 years by the time he hits free agency again. I mean, it might be an untouchable record by the time he's all said and done.
If you're talking about free agency, just quickly, if he does make an All-NBA team, or of course gets MVP or something like that, he could be eligible for a Supermax extension as early as this coming off season.
That's insane.
Only if he makes one of those teams.
At which point he deserves it, so I don't care.
Well, you just give it to him in a heartbeat. Like, you don't even think about it. He's still only 25 years old, and he's only been 25 years old for a month. Like, he's still growing. He's still going to get better. And you don't even blink if you're. I mean, Robert Sarver, for all the mistakes he's made, he definitely understands the value of Devin Booker, and I think he would give it to him right away. It's just really up to Devin Booker as far as whether or not he trusts that this team can still compete at a high level post Chris Paul, which if James Jones is still around, I have a feeling that he would do that. Quickly, before we get to previewing the 2 Warriors games this week, Mikal Bridges had sort of a banner week as well. He has been playing defense at another level from where he has been at any point in his career. The smartest defender guarding the best players on every team on a top 3 defense in the NBA. And I think sometimes people don't really understand the value that a single great point of attack defender can have on team defense. It makes such a massive difference that it's almost unquantifiable. I'm even going to talk about that in a minute when we talk about the Warriors, but
well, because it's the perfect example
yes,
of why it's important. Yeah.
Yes. So with Mikal Bridges, he was guarding James Harden, right? James Harden actually didn't score a single, I think he went 0 for 3 or something. Well, he was being guarded by Mikal Bridges, and he just could not get anything going. He also guarded Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant went 1 for 3 or something like that when Mikal was guarding Kevin Durant. We've seen him guard Kristaps Porzingis in the same game as he was guarding Jalen Brunson, 2 drastically different players. All this to lead to me looking up his odds for Defensive Player of the Year. Just curious if he's even listed in the odds. And I looked at multiple betting apps, right? They're available in Arizona now. And I did not find a single one the night of the game against the Nets. Of course, the next morning I checked, and there were now odds for Mikal Bridges, Defensive Player of the Year, plus 12,000 were what the odds opened at for Mikal Bridges. So that's like if you give $10, you can get $1,200 back if he wins. Of course, this is not a bet I'm saying that you should make. But what I am asking you is to start that narrative. I think that begins with the Warriors. After what he's done so far, it's about how he defends Steph Curry, which is a little unfair. And this is what it takes for point of attack defenders because they're the ones that are on these star players at all times. That's why centers tend to win, bigs tend to win, help defenders tend to win because they just don't have to be on these guys at all times. They're just sort of benefiting from the defense funneling them into them. But what would it take, do you think, for Mikal Bridges to be in that conversation? We've talked about first team all defense. And like I said, they're a year behind anyway, so he probably will get that, not even be in the defensive player of the year conversation. But what would it take in your mind?
Well, there's a reason the odds are what they are because it's a narrative-based award. We know that. It's a narrative-based award. And it's an award that typically goes to bigs because if we're being honest, just totally honest, bigs, on average, have more defensive impact than guards or wings on average. I do believe that's the case when we're talking about team defense. Traditionally, and I know he's fun to make fun of for one reason or another, but traditionally, if you look at why a guy like Rudy Gobert has won the award so many times, and just look at the on-off numbers that he's had year after year with the Jazz, and specifically that defensive rating and what happens to it when Gobert is not on the floor, it's easy to make those types of arguments when you just have that one guy in the middle who has all of that defensive gravity. However, there have been exceptions to the rule, and you look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who in year 4, the same year that Mikal Bridges is in now, Kawhi Leonard won his first Defensive Player of the Year award on the Spurs. They were a 55-win team, went to the finals that year, so obviously they were one of the best teams in the league. Kawhi led the league in steals at 2.3 per game. He also averaged 0.8 blocks per game. I think sometimes, even though those numbers don't necessarily mean a ton, it's important if you actually want to get the votes, sometimes to just see that little bold 2.3 there next to Kawhi's name for this year that indicates that he led the league in steals. It matters to people. Does it literally matter that he averaged 2.3 steals versus 1.8? No, I don't really think, Kawhi or Greg Popovich that season or anyone gave a fuck. But I do think it matters to the narrative. So for Mikal, it's certainly possible, though. Just by virtue of being on a top 4 to 5 team in the NBA, which if that's where the Suns finish this year, in terms of record, and if we start the narrative. So, like you said, I think Suns fans underrate our ability to start a proper narrative at this point. Yeah. I think we can be pretty effective if we put our minds to it. Right. But I would say all of that could go right.
Exactly.
And it would still be not above a 50% chance, but totally possible.
They're a year behind. I speculated with you when you were in town here that I think they could give it to Giannis this year because I don't think they'll give him MVP. And I think they'll want to give him something because of how well he's playing. And that's the type of thing I could see happening.
And they're tired of they're tired of Gobert specifically,
yes,
too.
Exactly.
Like, the Jazz are great. The Jazz are good, again. Like, their net rating is actually really good, even if their record doesn't reflect it. They're going to finish with 55 wins, probably, if not more. But they're just not doing anything special compared to the last few years, so that voter fatigue, I think, has set in.
All of these narratives that we're starting right now could come crashing down if they get beaten, or how they could get beaten by the Warriors.
True.
So obviously they would be maintained if they win. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start previewing those games, since there's 2 this week, because I think they're going to be really interesting. We'll be right back. All right, Sam, 2 games against the Warriors this week. One on Tuesday, one on Friday? Thursday? Yeah, Friday. And with a game against one of the worst teams in the NBA in the middle, the Detroit Pistons, which of course is the classic trap game, because if they're not focused on that one, everyone's going to want to stop the win streak if it's still going. The Warriors are really good, like really, really good. They have, right now, their defensive rating is under 100, 99.4, which is the best defensive rating in the NBA by a mile, by a lot. Like, the next best one, I think, in the stretch that I looked at was like 102. So, like, to compare it to that's a huge difference for those who don't follow net ratings normally. That's a massive
it's like a
difference.
Full standard deviation, probably.
Exactly. So, and Steph is playing like Steph, like the Steph that we saw in the past.
Like MVP Steph.
Steph.
We can
exactly.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to watch the Warriors this year? What do you think?
I have. I expected the Warriors to be good coming into this season. I had questions about some of the acquisitions that they made. Not that they didn't necessarily fit, but just, how much juice does a guy like Otto Porter or Nemanja Bjelica really have when you add them to, or Andre Iguodala for that matter, those types of players when you add them to their bench. So I expected them to be good on the power of Steph and maybe struggle a little bit out of the gate until they finally get Klay Thompson back around Christmas. Oh my God, has that not been the case?
Yeah.
I did not expect this.
Yeah, blowing best net rating in the league by a lot. Sort of almost doubling up the Suns, basically. Like a huge difference in net rating. And they're killing teams. And I looked up the stats for the last 10 games. I wanted to see some stats for the last 10 games. And just out of curiosity, let's just read out. And I think it's an interesting contrast of these two teams, by the way. Steph Curry in the last 10 games, essentially averaging 30 points a game, 29.8 points a game. Andrew Wiggins, number 2, 22.4. Jordan Poole, who is, I think, one of the main catalysts for them being this good so far this season. Basically, a new second best player, maybe third best player, after Draymond, if you want to look at it that way, which I would. 17.9 points a game, and just sort of lethal as far as creating his own threes, which is difficult to guard when you already have another guy like that. And then after that, no other players with more than 10 points a game in the last 10 games. So 29.8 for Curry, 22 for Andrew Wiggins, 17.9 for Jordan Poole. Contrasting that with the Suns, let me make sure I have 10 games here. The Suns have, do you want to guess how many players are averaging over 10 points on the Suns in the last 10 games?
6.
6 exactly. Yeah. Devin Booker, DeAndre, and Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, JaVale McGee, and Cameron Johnson.
Wow.
And then Cameron Payne just below that at 9.4.
Jay Crowder, where is he?
Jay Crowder is 8.7. So, these guys are just
balanced
below that. And even Shamet at 7. You go all the way down the line, and that's the main 9 guys that are playing now. Every single one of them is contributing in a pretty big way throughout this win streak, specifically the last 10 games, which I think they've really clicked in the last 10 games. I think what you look at when you look at that is the Suns have a really big challenge at shutting down maybe the best scorer of all time in Steph Curry. And then 2 other guys that are really sort of killing it as far as scoring. And the Warriors have a challenge of sort of defending maybe the best ball movement team in the NBA that's capable of hurting you in a bunch of different ways. And I think that's a really interesting challenge for the Suns. And in some small ways, maybe I'm wrong about this, benefits the Suns as far as regular season success. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it does benefit the Suns in terms of regular season success. More depth always does that. Yeah. And just because of this right here, as we know, rotations tighten up in the playoffs, but right now, the Warriors get about 33, 34 minutes of Steph Curry. They're as heliocentric as it gets. Yeah. But when they get their 33 to 34 minutes per game of Steph Curry, let me just read you the net rating numbers with Steph Curry this season. They're a plus 20.8 net rating with Curry on the floor. They're a minus 0.8 with him off the floor, so that's in those other 14 or so minutes per game. Their offensive rating without Steph Curry plunges from 116 something to about 100 points per 100 possessions, which frankly it's just not good. It's a pretty bad offensive rating right there. He is the engine that carries this offense, and so yeah, you're exactly right. It's a complete direct opposite approach to what the Suns are doing, but Curry is he's ridiculous, and so the Suns will have more of a chance in any of these regular season games because anytime he's off the floor, they're just going to Jordan Poole is a good secondary, tertiary player. Andrew Wiggins is a good secondary, tertiary type scorer. But put either of those guys in a position where they need to suddenly be the number one guy, paired with the Suns bench, which is just a lot more dynamic in a lot of ways. And I think the Suns are at an advantage in the regular season. All that changes in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this game just sort of in a vacuum, this is like a Mikal Bridges game, ultimately.
Yes.
Because I think the Suns, it's pretty clear to me what the Suns are going to do. And for those who haven't really been paying really close attention to how the Suns are defending so far this year, here's how I would describe it. It's probably the most conservative drop scheme of the entire time that Monty's been coaching the Suns. And by that, what I mean is when DeAndre Ayton's on the floor or JaVale McGee, they're dropping back on pick and rolls and basically guarding the paint, guarding any sort of penetration, stopping any teams from getting into close to the rim. And previously, what the Suns would do, I think last season specifically, they would mix in some switching. So when a screen comes, DeAndre Ayton would switch onto the guard. And then, of course, he could hold his own in some scenarios there. And I think they stopped doing that more and more as the season progressed last season. There are other options. They can trap. They almost never trap. They're more likely to double in the post. The Suns are not really a team that doubles a lot because they have so many good individual defenders or help defenders at the very last second. So what I'm saying is, if DeAndre Ayton drops in this game, which I have no reason to think that all of a sudden they're going to start switching everything unless something happens in this game. So to start this game, DeAndre Ayton's going to be playing in a drop position. Curry's going to be running around screens. The importance of Mikal Bridges against Stephen Curry and what he can do to hurt you has really never been higher as far as winning an individual game. Because there's not going to be that help there if DeAndre Ayton is dropping back into the paint. That means he's not going to switch onto him. Mikal has to fight over the screen and has to use his length to bother that shot as much as possible. And here's the truth. He's not going to be able to every single time.
He's not going to be able to.
It's just about making it as difficult as possible.
He's not going to be able to most of the time. If we're being honest, I think if you approach this game, Steph Curry's taken a career-high 13-point-something threes per game. If you approach this game with the mindset of we're going to drop, you're dead in the water. I really think you are. I think it's admirable what the Suns have done with their defensive scheme to this point. They've been able to sleepwalk. Which is a phrase that I've used in the past, honestly, because it's sleepwalking. JaVale can do it. Even Frank Kaminsky can drop. Like, all of them are just so sound when the Suns play in that scheme, and it's a surefire way to beat bad teams. But now you're playing, it's a playoff atmosphere for the first time this season, and you need to treat it like you would a real playoff environment, because this is a team you very well may be playing in the latter rounds of the playoffs. That doesn't necessarily mean I think they need to switch every time, but I don't know. We're gonna see what the Suns do tomorrow. I think if you're not at least trying to show two to the ball every time that Curry comes around those screens, you are asking for just an incredible amount of trouble.
I don't know,
from the opening tip.
I think I understand what you mean by that, because we just, talking about the scoring in the last 10 games, they're being carried by Steph, and you're sort of forcing other guys to beat you in that scenario, but you're forcing those other guys to beat you 4-on-3. Which, if you're showing two guys at Steph when he comes around those screens, which is just really difficult. And for the record, we're talking about switching on screens and stuff like that. They don't really run ball screens. They don't run pick and rolls the way that the Suns do. They do occasionally do that, but we're talking about Steph sort of running around dribble handoffs, which I think it becomes even more difficult to find times to trap. I'm not sure if I think a drop is not the right way to go. I'll be honest.
So that was interesting for a couple of reasons. So first of all, you're right about the fact the Warriors' offensive scheme is very different. One thing that's just fascinating about the Warriors, if you just look at their stats, Steph Curry is taking 6 catch and shoot threes per game this season. It's the second most catch and shoot threes he's taken throughout his career, which, by the way, he converts at a 47% clip overall, which is fucking absurd. But so just like consider the gravity of what that stat means for a second. Here's a guy who is the consensus best player, the consensus best shooter on the planet, and has been for half a decade, and he can still find the open space to take 6, not pull-ups, which are difficult off the dribble makes, 6 catch and shoot threes per game, which he converts at like a 50% rate. It's just automatic buckets. The fact that he can still do that says a lot about, honestly, what the Warriors' playmaking, their vision as a team, what Curry's back screening can do within their offensive sets. Draymond Green. Honestly, it says a lot about Steve Kerr, too. For as much as Warriors fans have wanted to give Steve Kerr shit for the past 2 seasons about their offensive scheme, it says a lot about Steve Kerr and his ability to bounce back from those seasons coming into this year. The fact that Steph Curry can do all that. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be really, really tough.
There's no great way to defend this team when Steph Curry's on the floor. It's just you're just picking your poison.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I disagree. I don't know what Monty's gonna do, but I disagree with you on the whole drop thing. I think you got to show 2 to the ball, and what's gonna happen after that is, because you already said it, you're leaving
from the jump. They're gonna show 2 to the ball. Because that's what I don't think they're going to do.
Here's what they're going to do. First of all, they're going to throw different looks at them throughout the game. because Curry's
stats.
too
I think I agree.
This is actually what they're going to do. It's too reductionist for us to just say they're going to do this, they're going to do that. When you actually play teams like this at such a polished level as is the NBA, you're throwing different defensive schemes to try and throw guys off continuously. But I think the show two to the ball strategy works better because, yes, you're going to leave the short roll there for Draymond, and we know he's a great playmaker. Yes, you're going to have the 3-on-2, the 4-on-3 mismatches after you get the ball out of Curry's hands. But here's the thing, Mike. Anyone else gets the ball in their hands on this Warriors team, you're putting a lot of faith. Here's what you're doing. You're putting a lot of faith in the Suns' wing rotation to be as versatile as possible, to scramble really well on the perimeter, to basically master their X-outs, which is, for those who don't know, is when you get a defense in rotation and you're scrambling. An X-out is a way of basically taking the most efficient path back out to recover onto open shooters, which is not always going onto the guy that you started the possession guarding, but sometimes it's about making these read and react plays within the flow of the defense. So you're trusting in all of your wing defenders to be versatile, guard multiple positions, X out, scramble really well. If there's any team that can do that against the Warriors at this point, it's the Phoenix Suns. If there's if there's any team that you can maybe have faith could do that just well enough, because here's the thing. If you can scramble, if you put 2 on Curry, when he comes around the pick, whether it's an off-ball screen, an on-ball screen, whatever, they get the mismatch. But if you can scramble well enough to prevent them getting the wide-open 3, there is no one else on that Warriors team that I really feel nervous about trying to create for themselves with the ball in their hands. Jordan Poole, all credit to him, he's had a good season. Andrew Wiggins, cutting out more of the long twos, taking more of the threes. He's having the most efficient season of his career, so credit to him as well. But I just am not worried about those guys having to beat me if I can get out to them fast enough and just make sure that they don't have the catch-and-shoot threes. Force them to create stuff off the dribble, and obviously Draymond can't do it. Looney can't do it. So if you can get the other guys to have to try and beat you, I think it's your best chance.
Yeah. For any Warriors fans who are listening to this for a reason to get mad, it's not that we're not afraid of those guys beating us because they're completely incapable of it. It's just that it's a better option than letting Steph kill you, because he absolutely will. He's cutthroat like that. And I think quickly, just to explain X-outs too, when you trap on the ball, you're essentially putting 2 defenders on 1 player. That means there's 3 on 4. Those 3 defenders that are not on the ball are essentially moving into a zone defense. They're trying to stand in the position that they're close enough to the offensive players that wherever the ball swings, they can make it out on time to properly contest and give the players who are trapping time to rotate out to the ball once the ball leaves the trap. So if you're able to picture that, it's essentially like a quick version of a zone defense. Yeah,
it's like a really brief transitory 5-second zone defense. Yeah. Because essentially what you're doing is each possession is a game of musical chairs defensively, right? The traditional way that you play help defense on pick and rolls in the NBA is you have guys who will sink or fill into the lane, and then sometimes guys start cutting around on the perimeter on offense, and you lose your assignment. So if you're the defenders, you have to make really quick, fast decisions about, okay, I lost my original assignment. Let me just find a man. This is the closest man that I can find. And NBA players, one of the things that it's just really hard to scout for, I feel like, is just the intelligence, the basketball IQ to be able to make those read and react decisions again and again and again with precision and communicate to your teammates that is exactly what you need to do and you need to be on the same page. But it's just one more area where the Suns' continuity helps them. Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges is going to start the night on Steph Curry. But, Jay Crowder is going to guard him every other possession, or Cam Johnson when he's on the floor, or Devin Booker.
Even Booker.
And every single guy in the wing rotation with the Suns, when I talk about X-outs, has gotten really good at this point, I think, at communicating seamlessly.
It's probably the thing that Devin Booker has struggled with the most in his career, is that sort of playing off-ball defense when there's multiple decisions to be made. And it's also the thing, I think, that in the last few games, he's shown like an extreme focus to play really well at, like specifically the Brooklyn game, because with Brooklyn, if you're not Xing out properly, because somebody like Kevin Durant or even James Harden can draw 2 defenders so easily, if you're not playing proper X-outs, if you're not zoning up properly on shooters, once that happens, they're going to kill you with threes. And Booker was really, really good in that Brooklyn game, and that type of effort, that type of energy, that type of focus has to carry on through to this game against Golden State because they're a perfect example of another team that can kill you. By the way, we're talking about how difficult it is to defend them and without Clay. So you can imagine why people are talking about the difference when Clay shows up, because that's just a guy who's just an absolute knockdown shooter in a third of a second when he releases that shot. So it's a big difference in what you have to do against them there. And I think you're right. I still think they're going to start in a drop. I just have that feeling. I just think it's something that Monty's going to do. But here's what I will say. Last season, it's essentially every game started with the Suns focusing on the thing that they did, right? And by that I mean like a normal drop defense with DeAndre, and they didn't start switching. They would do that, right? They would switch, but usually it was some sort of adjustment that they would make at some point during the game. Sometimes they would trap as well. Other options on defense they could do. But like this year, it's really been mostly a drop throughout the year. But one thing I will say is they still have changed things up. And here's an example. James Harden on the Nets, Mikal Bridges, for I think maybe one of the first times ever, was guarding him 90 feet, like full court press on James Harden, bothering him, getting the ball down the floor, and just kind of forcing him into turnovers because he was so desperate to get off the ball with somebody chasing him up and down the floor. That, to me, is the type of thing that could happen. I think the Warriors are much, much better at just sort of giving up the ball right away and getting Curry into those off-ball movements. But if you're just making him a little bit more uncomfortable here and there, I think that's the type of thing that they could do from the beginning of the game, which I think is not necessarily an adjustment that comes later, which I think they have done a lot of in the past. Mm-hmm. Now, do you have any other thoughts on what it's going to be like to defend them?
Well, here's one thing I can say. I was scanning for any morsel of evidence I could find of the Warriors being bad this year. I was like, just give me a stat that they struggle in. And I found one, and it's a really important one. Do you know what it is?
No, what?
The Warriors rank 28th in the NBA in turnovers per game. This really shocked me. The Warriors average 16 turnovers per game, close to dead last in the league. And typically not the type of stat that you would think a team could be that bad in and still be 18-2.
Yeah.
But as we talk about the Suns playing defense, I mean, two things. A, the Suns have been more aggressive this year. We just saw it with Mikal Bridges and his 7 steals against Brooklyn. The Suns they've been more aggressive in playing the passing lanes, that is. Mm-hmm. And B, this is why you prepare and start playing a faster pace, right? So that you can go into a game like this where if you know you can pressure a team's ball handling a little bit more and get out in the open floor, well, that's what all that practice was for, so that you can put it to use against an elite team like this and maybe give them a chance to win. Meanwhile, the Suns are obviously very, very careful with the basketball. Frequently, I think they still have the best assist-turnover ratio in the NBA, I would imagine. I haven't checked in a little while. But if it's not the best, it's very close to the best. And then, the Warriors surprisingly struggling in the turnover department. Maybe an area of weakness.
Yeah, I think probably the reason the Warriors can get away with that and still be a good team is because they can have more turnovers and still win the sort of points off turnover battle. Because one, they have really good transition defense, and two, they just kill you if you turn the ball over. Live ball turnovers against them is a 3 on the other end. It's not, it's not just getting to the rim. They can turn it into a 3 incredibly fast. And so for the Suns, who have a very, very good transition defense, that's going to be a major focus for this team. So obviously take care of the ball as much as possible. And then transition defense, whether it be, on rebounds, turnovers, or even makes, because they can push the ball on makes and just catch you off guard, they need to be really focused in transition. That's going to be a huge, huge, huge thing for them. Jordan Poole, I think, is going to be interesting because, what the Suns do defensively, how they match up against this team is going to be really interesting. Because are they going to put Devin Booker on Wiggins to start this game and have some version of, Mikal Bridges on Steph, Jay Crowder on Jordan Poole, or are they going to switch that up, have Devin Booker guarding Jordan Poole, and that's going to be something where he needs to be very focused off ball, if that is the case. 18 points a game is a lot. 57% true shooting percentage on the season, too. It's not like a coincidence. It's very efficient as well.
Well, here's a good question. Who's Chris Paul guarding? Because he can't He can't really guard. I mean, I know you're almost tempted to say, well, put him on Draymond. Draymond's a non-shooter, but he can't really do that.
Right.
The
only way you would do that if you're planning on switching and then him just sort of holding his own against Steph.
Which means your only choice is to put him on, because you're not going to put him on Looney either. Your only choice is to put him on one of the secondary, tertiary type scorers, both of who Jordan Poole or Andrew Wiggins could potentially punish him.
Yeah, it's probably got to be Poole at this point, which is just, it's kind of fascinating because that could end up with Devin Booker sort of matched up against Draymond. You would imagine it would be Jay Crowder, but I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. It's not the easiest team to match up with, but yeah, I think it's got to be Poole at that point because Wiggins, for all he does do, first of all, he scores more than Poole, but also he has post moves. He's got strength. He's incredibly athletic. You want somebody stronger against him than, Chris Paul. Even though Chris Paul, if you're baiting them into posting up Chris Paul, it's probably the best case scenario for the Suns. It's just going to beat the hell out of him over the course of a game if that's something that they ended up doing. Wiggins, by the way, if people haven't been paying attention, is just a straight up good defender now. Like, it's not even, he's good in stretches. It's not, he has the potential to be good. He's just good. He's a good defender now, and that's another good defender on the Warriors to match up against the Suns. We focus very much on defense, which this team forces you to do, is to focus on defense. They also have to defend the Suns, and they have the best defensive rating in the NBA so far. I think the Suns offensively actually match up pretty well, at least against the starters for this team. So I guess I'm not overly concerned offensively, but it is the best defense in the NBA, so they could stop anyone. But how do you feel about how the Suns are going to play offensively?
They are the best defense in the NBA. Draymond continues to quarterback them on that end. However, they're undersized. You can leverage that to your advantage a little bit between Curry and Poole. And even Looney, not the best defensive rebounder out there. So I think this is also a game where maybe DeAndre Ayton, I don't know, we should talk about him because this is an interesting matchup for DeAndre because it's, you think of a guy like Looney and you don't necessarily think, there's no way that he's going to score 15 or 20 points on the other end. Like, Ayton isn't going to have to worry about defense in that sense in this game. Mm-hmm. But these have been, ironically, sometimes the games in Ayton's career where he struggled against energy bigs, like a particular niche type of big who can just maybe isn't that naturally talented, doesn't have like the same scoring touch that Ayton does, but just brings the energy and focuses the defense and the hustle and the rebounding in a way that Ayton hasn't always been able to match. And so It's going to be very important that he can in this game. I think if he does, we know he's a terrific offensive rebounder. I think this is the type of game where he could feast on the offensive glass for sure. Yeah, especially if they go small. They do start Looney. Like, they do start big. But if they go small, which you imagine they will at some point, that's the way to get their best 5 players on the court, then Ayton's going to be vital at that point. And it is interesting, I was messaging our friend from the Light Years podcast, Blue Wire Warriors podcast, Sam. His name is Sam as well, Sam. But he actually... Resident public enemy number 1 to Suns Twitter. It's funny because I really like him and get along with him. And he's been great to us on this podcast. But he's like us in that he's okay sort of antagonizing fans of other teams, which I think makes people sometimes feel a certain way, which I'm okay with, Sure. If I want, sometimes I'm okay being the face of the enemy for a lot of other fans, like Denver fans. Same with you. We do the same shit. Don't dish it out if you can't take it, basically. Exactly. He tweeted out a question for Warriors fans. What worries you the most about the matchup with Phoenix? There was a joke answer, which is what worry, #arrogant season or whatever. But the 3 other ones are perimeter Deion, Steph, Ayton rebounding, and then just Booker. And the Ayton rebounding one is the one I think or just Ayton in general, and then in quotes or sort of parentheses, rebounding, etc. Just Ayton. And that's the number one thing that they were worried about. I think it's funny because if you really pay attention to the Warriors, one of their best things is turning that kind of matchup into a benefit for the Warriors. Like making a team try to keep a big on the floor and then the Warriors punishing it. And this is why I sort of disagreed with, I think they're going to put him in a drop because that's where he benefits the team the most. If you're ending up switching, you could trap, but if you end up switching a little too much, then it's essentially Ayton guarding Steph, which is just not great for him. No, I don't think, I wouldn't do that, and I don't think they're going to do that for the record.
Yeah, exactly. But it is kind of interesting that they do view that as their biggest challenge as far as what his poll says, which with over 2,000 votes so far. And it's interesting, and it could be, look, this is going to be one of those tests for DeAndre Ayton. A test of, we've talked about it often, he gets up for big games often. This is the biggest regular season game the Suns have had in Devin Booker's career. I don't know how else to really say that it's not. Definitely DeAndre Ayton's career.
Everyone is watching.
Everyone's watching.
Get hyped.
And they're all looking for a reason to discredit the Suns. Right?
Yeah.
That's
what makes it terrifying, but also just like everyone is going to be watching tomorrow, dude. I think the East Coast people are going to stay up for it, and it's at fucking 10:30.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating
I
game,
shouldn't be. I said at the beginning of the season I wasn't going to stay up for games this late. The only reason I'm doing it. The only reason I'm doing it is because they're going for the record. If they weren't going for the record, I'd be in bed for sure, dude. I was supposed to watch.
Now we're
games
calling it.
I was supposed to watch games on replay this year, man. This was going to be the first season that I did that. The Suns have totally screwed that up.
Goodbye sleep schedule. Yeah,
yes.
it's gonna be a fascinating matchup for that. One quick stat I saw, and here's something I think they could do. Gary Payton's son is on the Warriors this year. I don't know if people knew that.
Yeah,
and he's a really good defender.
He's
a really good defender.
He's a really good defender. Can I give my take on that? He's a really good defender. Makes all of the right hustle plays. Has amazing awareness, but he's also basically Shaq Harrison in a big market. I just want to make it clear. And there are certain guys out there. Yeah. I'm just saying.
You should love him for that, then, right?
Oh, I do love him, but also I feel a little bit. Well, I don't know.
You just want to rep Shaq, huh? Well, if Shaq was on the Warriors or Shaq was on the Suns right now, like he would be doing something very similar.
He would be doing something exactly like that. Also, the fact that Gary Payton is, Warriors fans mention him, or I don't want to throw Warriors fans under the bus necessarily, but people in the media mention him like he was just went undrafted this year. He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
Like he's exactly the type of Shaq Harrison type journeyman who a lot of those guys exist. And then they get credit in some markets and not others. But I am a fan. I will say that for sure. I'm a fan.
Well, here's the stat. He's number 1 in net rating of individual players in the Warriors so far.
That's absurd.
It is absurd because they have, he plays less minutes than other guys. So, that plays into his benefit so far. But he makes a big difference. He's one of the examples of what a single great point of attack defender can do for a team. And what we've seen since the playoffs and what we've seen sort of throughout Chris Paul's career, but I think it was amplified by the way Drew Holiday defended Chris Paul, is players defending Chris Paul up and down the court, 90 feet, basically bothering him, playing that full court press, trying to make him get rid of the ball earlier and get out of their sets. And I think that's something that we're going to see with Gary Payton Jr. Against Chris Paul in bench lineups, and I could even see it extending into the end of the game if it's something that works well for the Warriors, just sort of forcing Chris Paul to get rid of the ball a little earlier. One thing I will say is the Suns definitely understood that was going to happen this year, and they've worked some things into their specific plays that allow other players to bring the ball up and the ball get into Chris Paul's hands other ways. So they're a little more prepared for that than they were last year because of how it affected them in the finals. But I could see that happening, which is Gary Payton harassing Chris Paul his entire way down the floor. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to happen. He's their version of Javon Carter, but just bigger and better. So it's maybe not as much of a shooter as Javon was when.
Well, he's
when he
much stronger
Phoenix,
and insanely athletic.
Yeah,
insanely athletic.
Much more of a dunker for sure.
Yeah. And then they have another guy we haven't even talked about, Andre Iguodala, who's just another one of those guys who he's also I think he's number 2 in net rating on the Warriors so far.
Who is that? I've never heard of him.
Yeah, I wanted him on the Suns. Imagine if he replaced Torrey Craig. That's what I desperately wanted.
Hey,
but
one man's
that's another guy that can come in, man. You could see
Iguodala is another man's Jared Vanderbilt, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. You could see Iguodala at the end of this game guarding Booker. He's going to be placed on Booker at some point of the game. And just, that one of those classic things where Iguodala is in the game entirely to shut down a single player. And I think the best case for the Suns in this game, in these two games, is Booker being completely unstoppable. It just is, because this is a really, really good team. And when you're playing a really good team, similar to the playoffs, similar to the finals, whatever you want to say, the stars kind of have to carry you. Yes, they can win with depth, and they could just sort of come out and just move the ball around really well and win. Yes, that could happen. But sometimes you just need someone to rise above, and that's kind of the best case scenario for the Suns, and I'd like to see that for Devin Booker. Any last thoughts on this game?
Well, Chris Paul's going to be motivated by rage as well. So that's the
Which
other,
is good and bad, right?
That's the other variable there. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, me too. Very much looking forward to these games. One thing I will say, just to give a little perspective, I spent years enjoying the Warriors because the Suns were bad. And now when I watch them, they just fill me with rage. I get so mad because I'm like, how can they keep doing this? And I started to understand how other teams just hate them so much, because now they're the team that the Suns need to get past in order to make it to the NBA Finals. And they're filled with players that just are incredibly frustrating. So for the Suns, I'm desperate for them to win these two games. Of course, they can get to 19 wins this week if they beat the Warriors twice and then beat the Pistons in between, which is just the longest win streak.
20, actually, right?
Yeah, 20.
Wait,
no,
am I wrong?
No, 19. 17,
No,
18,
19.
19.
Okay.
Yeah, which is remarkable that they could even get there. So obviously I'm desperate for them to win, but also just sort of beating that demon that Chris Paul has with the Warriors. It would just be nice to be viewed as the favorite in that matchup for the first time in Chris Paul's career. I'm looking forward to the game. Anything else you got before we go, Sam?
Join us on Playback. Should be fun.
Very fun.
Hashtag ad. See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, patreon.com/The Timeline. Appreciate you guys. We'll be live tomorrow, back with a Patreon episode sometime later this week.